I held the pen in my trembling hand, staring down at the thick document in front of me. 27 pages. My husband-to-be, Marcus, sat across from me in his lawyer's glass-walled office in Victoria Island, Lagos, wearing that smile I used to find charming. Now it just looked cruel. "It's standard procedure, Amara," he said, leaning back in his leather chair like a king on his throne. "Successful men protect their assets. You understand, don't you?" I understood plenty. I understood that after 2 years together, after planning our wedding, after meeting his family and introducing him to mine, he thought I was after his money. The prenuptial agreement spelled it out clearly. If our marriage ended for any reason, I would leave with nothing. Not the house. Not the cars. Not even the business we were supposed to build together. Marcus's lawyer, a thin man named Mr. Okonkwo, slid the papers closer to me. "Just a formality, Miss Amara. Sign here, here, and here." My best friend Zainab had warned me. "Girl, any man who loves you won't make you sign away your dignity before you even say, 'I do,'" she'd said over suya and Chapman at our favorite spot in Lekki. But I'd defended him. Marcus came from old money, the kind of wealth that made people nervous. His family owned hotels, real estate, import businesses. I was a school teacher from a modest family in Ibadan. Maybe he had reasons to be careful. "The wedding is in 3 weeks, Marcus added, checking his Rolex. "Let's not complicate things, baby. Sign it and we move forward. Don't sign it and—" He shrugged, letting the threat hang in the air. That's when I noticed his mother, Mrs. Adebayo, sitting quietly in the corner of the office. I hadn't seen her when I walked in. She wore her signature cream-colored geli and wrapper, her face unreadable. She'd never liked me. At family dinners, she'd ask pointed questions about my background, my education, my family's standing. Now she sat there like a judge waiting for a verdict. "My son has a future to protect," she finally spoke, her voice cold and measured. "You seem like a nice girl, but love and business are separate matters. If you truly love Marcus, this paper should mean nothing to you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk out. But something in me stayed calm. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the memory of my grandmother's words, "Amara, patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Let a fool think he's won. Truth always finds its day." So I picked up the pen. Marcus actually laughed. Not a small chuckle, but a full, relieved laugh. "See, Mama? I told you she'd be reasonable. Amara knows what's good for her." Mr. Okonkwo pushed the papers toward me, pointing at the signature lines. As I read through the clauses one more time, I noticed something interesting. The prenup protected Marcus's premarital assets, yes. But there was nothing about assets acquired during the marriage. Nothing about intellectual property. Nothing about business ventures started after our wedding date. The document was ironclad for what Marcus already had. But it was silent on everything else. I looked up at Marcus, who was already texting on his phone, barely paying attention. I glanced at his mother, who was examining her nails with bored superiority. Then I looked at Mr. Okonkwo, who seemed eager to finish this meeting and move on to his next appointment. None of them knew what I knew. None of them had any idea what I'd been building in silence for the past 8 months. I signed my name on every page. Confident. "There," I said, sliding the document back across the table. "All done." Marcus stood up and kissed my forehead like I was a child who just finished her homework. "Good girl. Now we can focus on the wedding." "Mama, isn't she just perfect?" Mrs. Adebayo smiled thinly. "We shall see." As I walked out of that office and into the Lagos heat, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a quiet, burning clarity. They thought they'd protected themselves. They thought I was just a simple teacher who'd signed away her future for love. They had no idea what was coming. What do you think Amara knows that Marcus doesn't? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this story unfolds. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The wedding was everything Marcus's mother wanted and nothing I had dreamed of. St. Mary's Cathedral in Lagos Island was packed with over 500 guests, most of whom I'd never met. Politicians, business moguls, society women dripping in gold and designer aso-ebi. The reception at Eco Hotel was a spectacle of excess, ice sculptures, a live band, champagne towers, and a cake taller than me. I smiled through it all, playing the role of the grateful bride who'd married above her station. "You've done well for yourself," one of Marcus's aunties whispered to me during the reception, her perfume so strong it made my eyes water. "A teacher marrying into the Adebayo family. Your children will never lack." What she didn't say but meant was clear. I was lucky. I should be grateful. I should spend the rest of my life proving I deserved this. Marcus gave a toast that night, champagne glass raised high, his friends cheering him on. "To my beautiful wife, Amar. She's not just beautiful, she's smart enough to know a good thing when she sees it." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, even though the joke was obviously at my expense. Our honeymoon in Zanzibar was picture-perfect on the surface. White sand beaches, luxury resort, sunset dinners. But at night, when Marcus thought I was asleep, I'd hear him on the phone in the bathroom, talking business with his partners, making plans that never included me. "The new hotel project in Abuja needs another 50 million naira, he'd say. "Pull it from the trust fund." "No, don't tell Amar. She doesn't need to know the details. Just keep everything in my name like we discussed." I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths. Patience, I'd remind myself. Patience. When we returned to Lagos, reality set in quickly. Marcus spent most days at his office or his social club. I went back to teaching at Green Valley Academy, the private school where I'd worked for 5 years. My colleagues threw me a small celebration, genuinely happy for me despite the awkwardness of knowing I'd married so far above my supposed station. Mrs. Adebayo now, my fellow teacher, Chioma, teased during lunch break. "Living in that big house in Ikoyi. When do you quit and become a full-time Lagos wife?" "Never," I said simply. "I love teaching." And I did. But teaching wasn't all I was doing. 3 evenings a week, after school, I'd drive to a small office space in Yaba I'd been renting for the past year. The sign outside read EduTech Solutions, and inside, my small team of 3 developers and 2 content creators were building something revolutionary, an affordable online learning platform for African students. We'd started it as a side project when I noticed how many of my students couldn't afford extra lessons or tutoring. Using my savings and a small loan from my uncle, I'd hired young programmers fresh out of university, hungry and talented. We'd been developing interactive lessons, video tutorials, and practice tests for secondary school students preparing for WEC and JAM exams. By the time Marcus proposed, we'd already had 50,000 registered users and had caught the attention of an education technology investor from South Africa. But I kept it quiet, told no one except my team and Zainab. Certainly not Marcus or his family. The prenup protected Marcus's premarital assets. Everything he owned before our wedding was his alone. But it said nothing about what I owned. And more importantly, it said nothing about what I would build during our marriage. 2 months after the wedding, the South African investor made his offer, $5 million for a 40% stake in EduTech Solutions. The company would be valued at $12.5 million. My 60% share would be worth $7.5 million. I was a millionaire. And Marcus had no idea. I didn't tell him. Not yet. Instead, I watched and waited. I watched him make decisions about our future without consulting me. I watched him spend money carelessly, confident in his family's wealth. I watched his mother visit our home and rearrange my kitchen, my living room, my entire life, treating me like a guest in my own house. "Marcus," Mrs. Adebayo said one Sunday afternoon, sitting in our parlor like she owned it, "you need to think about children soon. Amara is not getting any younger. We need heirs." Marcus nodded along. "Mama's right. We should start trying." No one asked what I wanted. No one considered that I might have plans, dreams, ambitions beyond producing grandchildren for the Adebayo dynasty. That night, I sat at my laptop in our study, reviewing the investment contract one more time. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Folake who'd helped me structure everything properly, had made sure my ownership was protected. The company was registered in my maiden name. All assets were separate from Marcus's holdings. Everything was clean, legal, and completely mine. What are you working on? Marcus asked, walking into the study with a glass of whiskey. Just school stuff, I said, closing my laptop. Lesson plans. He nodded, already bored. Don't stay up too late. We have that charity gala tomorrow. Mama wants you to wear the gold jewelry she gave you. Of course, I said softly. He left, and I reopened my laptop. $7.5 million. The number still amazed me. But it wasn't about the money. It was about what Marcus and his family had assumed, that I had nothing, was nothing, would always be nothing without them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Keep watching because everything is about to change. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. You'll want to see what Amara does next. 6 months into our marriage, Marcus started coming home later and later. Business meetings, he'd say. Networking events. Drinks with clients. I'd stopped asking questions because the answers were always the same, vague, dismissive, designed to remind me that his world was separate from mine. One evening, Zainab came over for dinner. Marcus was out again, so we sat in the spacious kitchen that still felt more like Mrs. Adebayo's than mine, sharing jollof rice and fried plantain. Girl, when are you going to tell him? Zainab asked, her eyes wide with excitement. You're literally a multimillionaire and he's treating you like some charity case. The look on his face would be priceless. I shook my head. Not yet. Timing is everything. Timing? Amara, he had you sign that prenup like you were some gold digger. Meanwhile, you're worth more than half his friends combined. How much more patient can you be? I understood her frustration. But my grandmother's voice echoed in my head constantly, let them underestimate you. A lion doesn't announce its presence. It simply shows up. The truth was, I was waiting for something. I wasn't sure what yet, but I'd know it when I saw it. The answer came 2 weeks later, on a rainy Thursday evening. I came home early from a meeting with my EDU tech team. We just signed partnerships with 3 major schools in Ghana and Kenya. Our user base had grown to 200,000 students across West Africa. The growth was explosive, and we were planning our next funding round. As I pulled into our compound, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked beside Marcus's Range Rover. A sleek Mercedes with tinted windows. I walked into the house quietly, shaking rain from my umbrella. Voices drifted from Marcus's study upstairs. His voice and a woman's. Laughing. Intimate. My heart should have broken. That's what happens in these stories, right? The wife discovers the affair and falls apart. But I felt something else entirely, clarity. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. She's so naive, the woman's voice said. She actually believes you married her for love. Marcus laughed, that same laugh from the lawyer's office. Amara's harmless. A simple village girl who got lucky. Mama wanted me to marry someone I could control, and a schoolteacher fit the bill perfectly. Plus, she's pretty enough to show off at events. And the prenup? Ironclad. If she ever tries to leave, she gets nothing. She signed away any claim to my family's wealth. My lawyer made sure of it. Smart man, the woman purred. So when are you going to tell your mother about us? Soon. Maybe after Amara gives me a child or 2. Heirs are important for the family business. After that, we'll see. For now, she serves her purpose. I could have stormed up those stairs. I could have confronted them, screamed, thrown things. But I didn't. Instead, I quietly walked back outside, got in my car, and drove to my office in Yaba. My team was still there, working late as usual. They looked up when I walked in, surprised to see me twice in one day. Boss, you okay? Asked Tund, my lead developer. You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, I said, and I meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. How fast can we accelerate the expansion plan? My team exchanged glances. Ngozi, my content director, spoke up. We were planning to launch in Tanzania and Uganda next quarter. But if we push hard, we could do it in 6 weeks. Why? Because, I said, sitting down at our conference table, I want EDU Tech Solutions to be the biggest education platform in Africa within a year. I want partnerships with every major school system from Lagos to Nairobi. I want government contracts, international recognition, Everything. That's ambitious, Tun said slowly. It would require another major investment round. We'd need at least $10 million. Then let's get it, I said firmly. Set up meetings with every investor who's shown interest. I want proposals, projections, everything ready within 2 weeks. They stared at me, confused by this sudden intensity. But they nodded and got to work. I didn't go home that night until very late. When I finally did, Marcus was asleep, and the mysterious Mercedes was gone. I stood in our bedroom doorway, watching him sleep peacefully, completely unaware that his simple village wife had just set events in motion that would change everything. The next morning, I woke up early and made breakfast, something I rarely did anymore. Marcus came downstairs, surprised to find eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice waiting. "What's the occasion?" he asked suspiciously. "No occasion," I said sweetly. "Just wanted to do something nice for my husband." He relaxed, that arrogant smile returning. "See, this is the Amara I married. Keep this up, and Mama might finally approve of you." I smiled back, pouring his coffee. "I'll do my best." What Marcus didn't know was that while he ate his breakfast, my lawyer Folake was filing paperwork for EduTech Solutions expansion. While he checked his phone and ignored me, my team was reaching out to investors in London, New York, and Johannesburg. While he went about his day thinking he'd married someone he could control, I was building an empire. That evening, I received an email that made my heart race. A Silicon Valley venture capital firm wanted to meet. They'd heard about our growth and were interested in investing $20 million for a 25% stake. $20 million. That would value my company at $80 million. My share would be worth $60 million. I closed my laptop and looked around our expensive house, at all the luxury Marcus's family money had bought. None of it mattered. None of it was truly mine, and I'd never wanted it to be. What I was building was different. It was mine. It was real. And it was about to show Marcus and his entire family exactly who they'd underestimated. Are you seeing where this is going? Amara's playing a completely different game. Drop a comment if you think Marcus deserves what's coming, and make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to get very interesting. The meeting with the Silicon Valley investors happened 3 weeks later, via video conference from my small office in Yaba. Marcus thought I was at a teacher's workshop. His mother thought I was shopping for baby clothes, dropping hints constantly about grandchildren. The investors were impressed. Our user numbers had climbed to 300,000 students. Our retention rate was exceptional. Schools across 6 African countries were now using our platform. We developed partnerships with local telecom companies to offer affordable data packages for students. Everything was growing faster than even I had projected. Mrs. Adebayo, the lead investor, a woman named Sarah Chen, said through the screen, "Your platform is exactly what African education needs. We're prepared to offer $25 million for a 20% stake." I kept my face calm, but inside I was screaming. $25 million for 20% meant my company was now valued at $125 million. My 80% share was worth $100 million. $100 million. I was wealthier than Marcus. Wealthier than his entire immediate family, probably. And he still thought I was a simple schoolteacher lucky to have married him. "I need to discuss this with my team," I said professionally, though every cell in my body wanted to say yes immediately. "Of course, we'll need an answer within 2 weeks. The education technology market is moving fast, and we have other opportunities we're considering." After the call ended, my team erupted in celebration. Tund literally jumped out of his chair. Ngozi was crying happy tears. Our 2 other developers were shouting and hugging each other. "Boss, do you know what this means?" Tund said, grabbing my hands. "We're going to change education across this entire continent. Kids in remote villages will have access to the same quality lessons as kids in expensive private schools. This is huge." He was right. It wasn't just about the money, though the money was important. It was about impact. It was about proving that African solutions to African problems could compete globally. It was about showing that a woman from a modest background could build something extraordinary. But it was also, I had to admit, about showing Marcus exactly how wrong he'd been. I went home that evening to find Mrs. Adebayo sitting in my living room, drinking tea like she lived there. Marcus sat beside her, looking annoyed. "There you are," his mother said, her tone sharp. "I've been waiting for over an hour. We need to discuss the charity fundraiser next month. As Marcus's wife, you'll be expected to co-host with me." "Of course, Mama," I said, setting down my bag. "I'd be honored. You'll need appropriate clothing. Not these simple teacher clothes you wear. I've made an appointment with my designer for you tomorrow at 2. I glanced at Marcus, waiting for him to defend me, to tell his mother that she couldn't just commandeer my schedule. He said nothing, just scrolled through his phone. "Actually, Mama, I have an important meeting tomorrow at 2, I said politely. "Can we reschedule for another day?" Her eyes narrowed. What meeting could possibly be more important than family obligations? More important than supporting your husband's family's charity work? "It's a work meeting. For school." She laughed, actually laughed. "My dear, you're a schoolteacher. I'm sure your principal will understand if you miss one little meeting. This is your duty now as an Adebayo wife. Family comes first." Something in me snapped. Not dramatically, not with shouting or tears. Just a quiet, final click, like a door closing. "No," I said simply. The room went silent. Marcus looked up from his phone. His mother's teacup froze halfway to her lips. "Excuse me," she said slowly. I said, "No, Mama. I can't reschedule my meeting. It's important. We can do the designer appointment next week instead." Mrs. Adebayo stood up, her face tight with anger. "Marcus, are you going to let your wife disrespect me like this?" Marcus sighed like I was a misbehaving child. "Amara, just reschedule your school thing. Make Mama happy. Why do you always have to be difficult?" I looked at my husband, really looked at him. This man who'd made me sign away rights I never wanted to his money. This man who'd laughed with another woman about how naive and controllable I was. This man who'd married me not for love but for appearances, for an easily managed wife who'd produce heirs and stay in her place. "I'm not being difficult," I said calmly. "I'm telling you I have a prior commitment that I cannot change. The designer appointment can be moved. My meeting cannot." "What meeting is so important?" Marcus demanded, standing up now. "What could a teacher possibly have that can't be rescheduled?" This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for without realizing it. The moment when their condescension and their certainty that I was beneath them became too much to tolerate in silence any longer. But I still wasn't ready to reveal everything. Not yet. That moment would come, but it needed to be perfect. "It's a professional development meeting," I said simply, "for a project I've been working on." "A project?" Mrs. Adebayo scoffed. "What project? Teaching alphabet to children?" I smiled, a real smile this time. "Something like that." I walked upstairs, leaving them both sputtering in confusion and anger. In our bedroom, I called Folake, my lawyer. "I'm ready," I told her. "Accept the investor's offer. And start preparing the other documents we discussed." "Are you sure?" Folake asked. "Once we do this, there's no going back." I thought about Marcus's laugh. About his mother's constant disrespect. About the woman in his study. About the prenup I'd signed while they all watched me like a fool signing away her future. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I said. The next morning, I went to my meeting with the investors, finalized the deal, and became, on paper, worth $100 million. That afternoon, I taught my regular classes at Green Valley Academy, helping teenagers understand quadratic equations and essay structure. That evening, I came home and cooked dinner for a husband who barely looked up from his phone to thank me. But everything was different now. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was ready. And Marcus Adebayo had no idea what was about to hit him. What would you do in Amara's position? Let me know in the comments below, and stay tuned because the next chapter is where everything comes together. The charity fundraiser was held at the Adebayo family's hotel in Victoria Island. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, Lagos's elite dressed in their finest. The event was raising money for orphanages across Nigeria, a cause Mrs. Adebayo championed publicly while treating people like me with private disdain. I wore the dress her designer had made, a gorgeous emerald green gown that cost more than most people earned in 6 months. Mrs. Adebayo had insisted on every detail, from my hairstyle to my jewelry, transforming me into the perfect accessory for her son. Marcus stood beside me at the entrance, greeting guests. His hand rested on my lower back, possessive and performative. To everyone watching, we were the perfect couple. Young, attractive, successful. Nobody knew he'd been sneaking around with another woman. Nobody knew about the prenup. Nobody knew anything real. "Smile more," he whispered in my ear as a photographer approached. "You look too serious." I smiled. I'd gotten very good at smiling. Halfway through the evening, Mrs. Adebayo took the microphone to give a speech about the importance of giving back, of using wealth and privilege to help the less fortunate. The irony wasn't lost on me. This woman who treated her own daughter-in-law like a servant was lecturing others about compassion. "And I must thank my son Marcus and his lovely wife Amara for their support tonight," she said, gesturing toward us. "Amara may come from humble beginnings, but she's learning what it means to be part of a family dedicated to service." The applause was polite, but I caught the whispers, the knowing looks. Everyone understood what humble beginnings meant. Everyone knew I was the schoolteacher who'd married up. The lucky girl who should be grateful. I kept smiling. After her speech, a man approached me, older, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit. "Mrs. Adebayo?" he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Chukwuma Obi. I run the National Education Foundation." We shook hands. Marcus had wandered off to talk to his friends, leaving me alone. "I've been hearing interesting things about an education technology platform that's making waves across West Africa," Dr. Obi continued. "EduTech Solutions. You wouldn't happen to know anything about it, would you?" My heart skipped. "Why would you think I know about it?" He smiled knowingly. "Because I make it my business to know who's doing important work in African education. And when I investigated EduTech Solutions, I discovered something fascinating. The founder and CEO is listed as Amara Okafor. Your maiden name, unless I'm mistaken." I stared at him, trying to decide how to respond. "Don't worry," he said gently. "Your secret is safe with me. But I wanted to introduce myself because the foundation is very impressed with your work. We'd like to discuss a potential partnership. Government contracts, nationwide implementation in public schools. We're talking about reaching millions of students." "Millions?" I whispered. "Your platform is exactly what Nigeria needs. Quality education, affordable and accessible. The Ministry of Education is prepared to make a substantial investment if you're interested in expanding." Before I could respond, Marcus appeared at my elbow. "Dr. Obi, good to see you, sir. I hope my wife isn't boring you with teacher talk." Dr. Obi's smile was cold. "On the contrary, your wife is quite fascinating. We were just discussing her remarkable achievements." Marcus laughed. "Achievements? Amara's a wonderful teacher, but I wouldn't call it remarkable. She works with children." "Yes," Dr. Obi said slowly. "She works with children. And apparently, she's revolutionizing how millions of African children learn. Quite impressive for someone you seem to think is unremarkable." The confusion on Marcus's face would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "Perhaps you should ask your wife about EduTech Solutions," Dr. Obi said. He turned to me. "Mrs. Amara, please have your people contact my office. We have much to discuss." He handed me his card and walked away. Marcus grabbed my arm, not gently. "What was that about? What is EduTech Solutions?" "Nothing important," I said, pulling my arm free. "Just a side project." "A side project that has the head of the National Education Foundation interested? Amara, what aren't you telling me?" I looked at my husband, this man who thought he knew everything about me, who thought he'd married someone simple and controllable. "You never asked Marcus. In 10 months of marriage, you never once asked me what I did with my time, what I cared about, what I dreamed of. You assumed you knew everything about me because I'm a teacher from Ibadan. You never thought I could be anything more." "That's not fair," he said, but his voice was uncertain now. "Isn't it? You had me sign a prenup protecting your assets like I was some gold digger." Your mother treats me like hired help. You make decisions about our life without consulting me. When exactly was I supposed to tell you about my work? People were starting to stare. Marcus noticed, his face flushing with embarrassment and anger. We'll discuss this at home, he hissed. Yes, I said calmly. We will. The rest of the evening dragged on. I made polite conversation, smiled for photographs, played my role. But something had shifted. Dr. Obi's appearance had been unexpected, but it had also been a sign. The walls between my two lives were starting to crumble. On the drive home, Marcus was silent, gripping the steering wheel too tightly. When we got to the house, he followed me upstairs to our bedroom. I want answers, Amara. What is this EDU tech thing, and why is Dr. Obi interested in it? I sat down on the bed, suddenly exhausted. It's an online learning platform I created for students preparing for WEC and JAM exams. We have over 300,000 users across 6 countries. He stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. You created it? When? I started developing it 2 years ago, before we got married. And you never thought to mention this? To your own husband? I laughed, a bitter sound. Marcus, do you remember our wedding toast? You said I was smart enough to know a good thing when I saw it. Everyone laughed because the joke was that I was lucky to marry you. Do you remember the prenup? You and your mother and your lawyer all sat there watching me sign away any claim to your wealth, laughing at how reasonable I was being. When exactly did you show interest in my life, my work, my dreams? That's different. I was protecting my family's legacy. And I was building my own, I said quietly. Without your family's money. Without your name. Without any of it. How big is this company? He asked, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. Already he was wondering how he could benefit from it, how he could claim some ownership. Big enough, I said. I'm your husband. We're married. What's yours is mine too, right? I smiled, remembering the prenup. Actually, no. Remember that Ironclad Prenup you had me sign? It protects premarital assets. EDU Tech Solutions was started before our marriage. It's mine alone. Just like all your family's wealth is yours alone. The realization hit him like a physical blow. You planned this. You've been hiding this from me deliberately. No, Marcus. I've been building something while you ignored me. There's a difference. He stood there, mouth opening and closing, trying to find words. Finally, he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. I sat in the silence, my phone buzzing with a text from Folake. Government contract details just came through. Review and call me tomorrow. This is going to be huge. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The truth was starting to come out, but we weren't finished yet. Not by a long shot. If you're loving Amara's story, make sure you hit that subscribe button. The final chapters are going to blow your mind, and you don't want to miss a single moment of what happens next. Marcus didn't come to bed that night. I found him the next morning in his study, still wearing his suit from the fundraiser, surrounded by his laptop and papers. He'd clearly been searching for information about EDU Tech Solutions all night. $100 million, he said without looking up. Your company was just valued at $100 million. Your share is worth $80 million. I didn't confirm or deny it. I just stood in the doorway, waiting. You're worth more than me, he continued, his voice strange, hollow. More than my trust fund. More than most of my family's liquid assets. And you never said a word. Would it have mattered? I asked quietly. He finally looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, Marcus looked uncertain. My mother is going to lose her mind. The prenup, the things we said, the way we treated you. He ran his hands through his hair. Amara, we need to figure out how to handle this. Handle this. I repeated. Handle what exactly? The optics. What people will think. We need a strategy, a way to present this that makes sense. Maybe we can say I've been helping you all along, that it was a joint venture. And there it was. Not an apology. Not acknowledgement of how he treated me. Just concern about appearances and an immediate attempt to claim credit for my work. No, I said simply. No, Amar, be reasonable. We're married. We're a team. Your success is our success. Like your family's wealth was our wealth? I asked. Like how you shared everything with me. Made me an equal partner in decisions? Respected my opinions? He stood up, frustrated. That was different. I was protecting my family's legacy. And I'm protecting mine, I said. EDU Tech Solutions is mine, Marcus. I built it. My team and I, with our own vision and hard work. You don't get to claim it just because you married me. I'm not trying to claim it. I just think we should present a united front. People are going to talk. Let them talk. Before he could respond, his phone rang. His mother. He answered on speaker, and her voice filled the room, sharp and angry. Marcus, have you seen the business section of The Guardian this morning? There's an article about some education company, and they're mentioning Amara's name. Tell me this is a mistake. Marcus looked at me. I pulled out my own phone and found the article. There it was. Nigerian edtech startup secures major international investment. Founder Amara Okafor Adebayo set to transform African education. The article detailed everything. The Silicon Valley investment, our user growth, the upcoming government contracts, my background as a teacher who saw a need and filled it. There was a photo of me from our last team meeting, professional and confident, looking nothing like the quiet wife who smiled politely at family gatherings. It's not a mistake, Mama, I said, taking the phone from Marcus. It's real. I own an education technology company. Silence. Then, you will come to the house immediately. We need to discuss this as a family. I have work today, Mama. Classes to teach and meetings to attend. Classes? She screeched. You're worth millions and you're still teaching in some school? This is ridiculous. Marcus, bring her here now. I'll come, I said calmly. But on my schedule, not yours. I'll be there at 6 this evening. I hung up before she could respond and handed the phone back to Marcus. She's going to destroy you for that, he said. She can try. I went to school that day and taught my classes like normal. My students had no idea their teacher had just become one of the wealthiest self-made women in Nigeria. Between periods, my phone buzzed constantly. Interview requests, congratulatory messages, investment offers. Dr. Obi's office sent over the government contract proposal, a 3-year deal worth $15 million to implement EDU Tech Solutions in public schools across 5 states. Zainab called during lunch, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Girl, you're in The Guardian. You're famous. Why didn't you tell me it was this big? It grew faster than I expected, I admitted. And Marcus? His mother? What did they say? About what you'd expect. Confusion. Attempts to take credit or control. Are you going to leave him? She asked bluntly. I'd been asking myself the same question all morning. I don't know yet, but I'm done being invisible in my own marriage. At 6 o'clock, I drove to the Adebayo family house in Ikoyi, a mansion that had intimidated me the first time I visited. Now it just looked like a house, impressive but not important. The whole family was there. Marcus, his mother, his father Chief Adebayo, who rarely involved himself in family drama, his 2 sisters, and even his uncle who managed the family's real estate holdings. They sat in the formal living room like a tribunal, waiting to judge me. Sit down, Amara, Mrs. Adebayo said, her voice icy. I remained standing. I prefer to stand, thank you. Chief Adebayo raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. How long have you been deceiving this family? Mrs. Adebayo demanded. I haven't deceived anyone. I started a business. I worked hard. I succeeded. Those aren't deceptions. You hid it from us. From your own husband. Did I? Marcus never asked about my work. You never asked about my interests. Everyone assumed that because I'm a teacher from a modest background, I couldn't possibly have ambitions or abilities beyond what you could see. That's not deception on my part. That's assumption on yours. Marcus's sister Kemi spoke up. The prenup. You knew about your company when you signed it, didn't you? You knew you were protecting your assets while we thought we were protecting ours. I smiled. The prenup protects premarital assets on both sides. Everything Marcus owned before our marriage is his. Everything I owned before our marriage is mine. That's exactly what your family wanted, isn't it? Separation of assets? Well, you got it. This is unacceptable, Mrs. Adebayo said. You made us look like fools. No, Mama. You made yourselves look like fools by assuming I was less than I am. I didn't force Marcus to laugh when I signed that prenup. I didn't force you to treat me like I was beneath you. I didn't force any of you to dismiss me, to ignore me, to make decisions about my life without consulting me. You did all of that yourselves. The room fell silent. Chief Adebayo stood up slowly, and everyone turned to look at him. He walked over to me and I braced myself for anger. Instead, he smiled. My dear, I think you've taught this family a valuable lesson. We Adebayos have been wealthy for so long, we forgot that wealth can be earned, not just inherited. You built something from nothing. That's more impressive than anything my children have done with the advantages they were born with. Papa! Mrs. Adebayo protested. He held up his hand. Enough, Beatrice. The girl outsmarted us all, and we deserve it for our arrogance. Marcus, you married a brilliant woman and treated her like a decoration. That's your failure, not hers. He turned back to me. Amara, you have my respect. What you do with your marriage is your choice, but know that I, at least, see you clearly now. I nodded, grateful for his words even as I saw the fury on Mrs. Adebayo's face. Marcus stood up. Amara, can we talk? Alone. We walked out to the garden, away from his family's watchful eyes. I'm sorry, he said finally. For everything. The prenup, the way I treated you, the things I said. I was arrogant and stupid, and I took you for granted. You did, I agreed. Can we start over? Can we try to build a real partnership, now that everything is out in the open? I looked at my husband, this man I'd married hoping for love and respect, who'd given me neither until I proved I didn't need him. I don't know, Marcus. Sorry isn't enough. Not after everything. What do you want from me? It was a good question. What did I want? The answer would come soon enough. This story is almost complete, and you won't believe how it ends. Stay with me for the final chapter, and don't forget to subscribe so you catch every moment. 3 days after the family meeting, I made my decision. I called Folake, my lawyer, and told her to prepare divorce papers. Not because I was angry, not for revenge, but because I finally understood something important. I deserved a partner who saw me, respected me, and chose me every single day, not just after I proved my worth with a bank account. Marcus had apologized. He'd been attentive since the truth came out, suddenly interested in my work, my dreams, my opinions. But I couldn't forget the woman in his study, the laughter, the way he'd called me naive and simple. I couldn't forget that his change of heart came only after discovering my wealth, not because he'd genuinely seen the error of his ways. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. Trust was one of them. But before I filed the papers, I had one more thing to do. The National Education Conference was held at Eco Hotel, the same place Marcus and I had celebrated our wedding reception just a year ago. Dr. Obi had invited me to speak about EduTech solutions and our vision for transforming African education. It would be my first major public appearance as a tech entrepreneur, not as Marcus Adebayo's wife. The conference hall was packed with educators, government officials, investors, and journalists. I stood backstage, wearing a simple but elegant navy dress I'd chosen myself, no designer dictated by Mrs. Adebayo, no jewelry meant to impress. Just me. Zainab stood beside me, beaming with pride. You ready for this? More than ready, I said. Dr. Obi introduced me, highlighting EduTech Solutions' growth and impact. As I walked onto that stage, I saw Marcus in the audience, sitting with his mother and father. He looked nervous. Mrs. Adebayo looked like she'd swallowed something bitter. But Chief Adebayo smiled and nodded at me. I began my speech. Good afternoon. My name is Amara Okafor, founder and CEO of EduTech Solutions. A year ago, I was a secondary school teacher earning a modest salary, passionate about education but frustrated by inequality. I watched brilliant students fail not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked access to quality learning materials and extra lessons their families couldn't afford. I paused, looking out at the crowd. So I did something about it. With my savings and a small loan from my uncle, I hired a team of young developers and content creators. We worked evenings and weekends, building an online platform that could give every student in Africa access to excellent education, regardless of their family's wealth. We started with 50,000 users. Today, we serve over 500,000 students across 8 countries. The audience applauded. I continued. But this isn't just a success story about business. It's a story about how we see people, how we value them. When I started this company, many people in my life assumed I couldn't achieve something like this. They assumed that because I came from a modest background, because I was a teacher, because I was a woman, I should be grateful for whatever life gave me and never reach for more. I looked directly at Marcus. They had me sign documents protecting their assets from me, assuming I was someone to be protected against. They laughed when I signed, thinking I was naive, simple, easy to control. They never asked about my dreams because they assumed I had none worth hearing. The room was completely silent now. But here's what I learned. When people underestimate you, you have 2 choices. You can shrink to fit their expectations, or you can quietly build something so undeniable that their expectations become irrelevant. I chose the second path. And today, I stand before you not as someone's wife, not as someone's daughter-in-law, but as Amara Okafor, a woman who saw a problem and solved it, who built something meaningful from nothing. The applause was thunderous. I saw tears in some eyes, recognition in others. These were people who'd been underestimated too, who understood exactly what I meant. EDU Tech Solutions has just signed a partnership with the National Education Foundation to bring our platform to public schools across Nigeria. We've secured funding to expand into 10 more African countries within 2 years. But more than that, we've proven that African solutions to African problems can compete globally, can attract international investment, can change lives. I finished my speech with our mission statement and our vision for the future. The standing ovation lasted for nearly 5 minutes. Backstage, Dr. Obi shook my hand warmly. Powerful speech, Mrs. Amara. You've inspired everyone in that room. Just Amara, I corrected gently. Or Ms. Okafor if we're being formal. He understood immediately and nodded. Marcus found me as I was leaving. That speech, it was about me, wasn't it? About us. It was about my journey, I said. You were part of it, but Marcus, you weren't the point. My work is the point. The students we're helping are the point. That's what you never understood. Everything was never about you. Amar, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I love you. I looked at him sadly. Do you love me, Marcus? Or do you love the idea of being married to someone successful? Do you love who I actually am, or are you just afraid of looking foolish when people find out your wealthy wife divorced you? He didn't answer, and that told me everything. I've filed for divorce, I said quietly. The papers will be delivered tomorrow. According to the prenup you insisted on, our separation will be clean. You keep your family's assets. Do you mind? No complications, just like you wanted. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. That prenup you had me sign while you laughed? It protects both of us now. Ironic, isn't it? What about my family? What about the embarrassment? People will think I'm a fool. Then maybe you shouldn't have treated your wife like one, I said simply. I walked away, and this time, I didn't look back. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. True to the prenup, it was straightforward. Marcus kept his family's wealth. Kept mine. Mrs. Adebayo tried to contest it, claiming I'd deceived them, but her own lawyer reminded her that the prenup she'd insisted on made everything perfectly clear. Chief Adebayo called me personally to apologize for his family's treatment and to wish me well. You're going to do great things, Amara. I'm sorry my son wasn't wise enough to appreciate you. 6 months after the divorce, EDU Tech Solutions reached 2 million users. We'd expanded into 15 African countries and were in talks with education ministries across the continent. Forbes Africa featured me on their cover, the teacher who became a tech mogul, Amara Okafor's EdTech revolution. I never remarried, though I dated eventually, carefully, looking for partnership and respect rather than wealth or status. My company became my legacy, helping millions of African students access quality education regardless of their circumstances. And sometimes, when I'm working late in my office, I think about that day in the lawyer's office when I signed Marcus's prenup. I think about his laugh, his mother's satisfied smile, their absolute certainty that they'd protected themselves from me. They had no idea they were about to watch a simple teacher build an empire worth more than their assumptions could ever comprehend. The moral of my story is this: never let anyone else's limited vision define your worth. When people underestimate you, don't argue, don't explain. Just build. Build something so real, so undeniable, that their opinions become background noise to your success. Patience isn't weakness. Silence isn't submission. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is planning something extraordinary. And when they finally realize what you've been building while they weren't paying attention, that moment of recognition is sweeter than any revenge could ever be. My name is Amara Okafor. I'm an educator, an entrepreneur, and a woman who refused to be limited by anyone's expectations. This is my story. What lesson are you taking from Amara's journey? Have you ever been underestimated? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you think differently about patience and perseverance, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been told they're not enough, someone who's building something quietly while others doubt them. Remember, your worth isn't determined by who believes in you. It's determined by what you believe about yourself and what you're willing to build to prove it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it empowers you to write your own.